Everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. We are live. We are live. We are live in the building. This is Indiana Fever Unfiltered. Her game, her way, women's basketball. I have the pleasure, folks. I got the pleasure of having a guest with me this evening. I made a video about him, and he responded to it on X, and I gotta commend him. He's since done another video, and we're gonna talk and chop it up. And I appreciate him jumping on board. This is an impromptu thing. It was posted on X. He replied. I replied, and here we are. Just a couple hours later, I bring to you Grant Young from Sports Illustrated. Grant, I thank you for jumping on board here after the whirlwind of a day that you have probably had. Welcome aboard, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Obviously, not the best circumstances that brought us together, but I will also commend you because I've multiple people did videos about me and I reached out to all of them, and you're the only one who actually wanted to have me on and talk about it. So I appreciate you for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Look, I am my background. Just so you know who I am. I actually have a background in journalism, so I'm not the typical podcast. I'm not the typical one who just you know spouts off and at the mouth. And I am profane in my podcast. I'll be quite honest. And let me get ahead of this right now and say, I'm sure you watched my podcast or watched part of it. I apologize for any name calling that I did, whether it's inappropriate, and I shouldn't do that. And I apologize for that ahead of time, because you shouldn't do that. That is my bad, and I don't think that there's a place for that in any of this stuff. But there are no excuses, so I'm not going to sit here and make any. So I apologize for that. But my background is in journalism. I do have a print journalism degree, and so when I watch some of these podcasts and I listen to some of the people that are on them and some of the things that I've heard, I question WNBA media big time. And you are a member of the WNBA media, credentialed media, I presume, based on what you said. Give us your feedback on the stuff that you've encountered today and so forth, and how the first video came, and then I saw you made the second video, and where all this stemmed from for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I accept your apology and I thank you for making it. I will say that I personally, I have thick skin and I don't really care about the name calling. I didn't appreciate it, but that really isn't that big of a deal. But also coming from a journalist background, which I know that you said in your video, I'm not a journalist, but my minor was in journalism. And part of my master's in creative writing was journalism. So I've been journalism classes and I've done journalism in the past, and I'm a journalist right now. But there was some misinformation said about my background and about how I cover the game, which kind of rubbed me more the wrong way than the name calling. And so that's just, as I'm sure you can understand as a journalist, our truth is our word, and that's really all that people can trust about us. And so that's kind of honestly the biggest reason why I want to come on here, and just to set the record straight in that regard on a couple of things, and just to speak about how both videos came together.
So when I saw it, because actually where I saw your video was another podcast had done a video on it, and I saw it, and I'm gonna be real. I cover sports. So if you look at my podcast, I don't just cover Caitlin Clark. I cover combat sports. I have Yankees videos. I saw you cover the Yankees and the Mets. So having covered the Yankees and the Mets, I'm sure you see a difference in how the WNBA is covered comparatively. The abuse that an Aaron Boone deals with on a daily basis. If Aaron Judge strikes out 4 times, he's the biggest piece of garbage on earth. And the next day he hits 2 homers and he's God's gift to the earth again. He's my favorite player. And in the WNBA, we watch this constantly. We sit and we watch, and I analyze them because I listen to these questions. Because I cover the Miami Hurricanes, credentialed, and Miami Hurricane football is not a pleasant thing. And Mario Cristobal has been scrutinized and brutalized in media up until basically this past season. Why is it, or at least do you believe that there is a difference in how the WNBA is covered in comparison to the other sports that you've covered? And why, if you think so?
Yeah, I think I do agree. And I think that there's definitely a lot. I think there's a similar degree of scrutiny in the WNBA compared to other sports, but I think that because the WNBA is such a new sport, that I think fans and media and players are all not used to this platform that comes with being in the WNBA, and having, honestly, because Caitlin's in the league now, that's obviously hiding the profile it's on. And so I think everyone's just still learning how to acclimate to this new league that we are, where people actually give a shit about what's being said and what's happening on the court and what the narratives are around the court. And so, like you said, like, by the way, I'm also a huge Yankees fan, and so I'll have to listen to your stuff about that. Um, yeah, I just think that there's I think we all need to get more comfortable like criticizing at times, especially when the criticism is rooted in basketball and it's objective. Like I don't think everything needs to be taken so personally, especially from credentialed journalists who know what they're talking about and have earned the respect to speak about the game that we all care about so much.
Do you feel the questions that are asked of coaches, for example, are softballs a lot of times?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's kind of inevitable in a lot of sports. But yeah, I do think that, I mean, I'm not saying that the WNBA media is perfect. Like we certainly, as I just said, like I think the media has a lot of growing to do as well. Because again, like a lot of this, I mean, I'm relatively young. And so I've only been in it for a few years, but also like the WNBA media hasn't had this platform in a long time and we're all learning how to cover it together. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely times when, yeah, the questions could for sure be better, but I don't think that's like that much of an indictment on the state of the media as a whole.
Uh, I mean, we like I said, I cover the Fever. I'm covering now the Mystics as well. Trying to develop a huge platform on women's basketball, but I listen to these questions. I listen to these coaches. The Indiana Fever, for example, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's been wearing a back brace now since the first preseason game, and there's been literally nothing asked about it by credentialed media for 7 games now, 8 games. And then she's magically injured going into game 5 with a back problem. You listen to Stephanie White say, oh, well, it's just part of normal maintenance. Well, I mean, I have a professional athlete that co-hosts my podcast, and he played 10 years in the CFL and never saw people getting back adjustments mid-game or making ridiculous. Those were ridiculous comments. What do you think about that? Why do these media members not question harder on this type of thing?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because that's obviously an important thing. And okay, so I don't know if you like have been credentialed to a WNBA game, but essentially the way it works in a pregame and postgame press conference, like either pregame, it's usually Steph White will, like, let's talk about the Fever. Steph White will come in pregame. Sometimes Caitlin does, sometimes she doesn't. Then after the game, it's Steph and then 2 players. Usually Caitlin's there. However many media, so I was at the Sparks Fever game two
Okay.
Wednesdays ago.
Okay.
How it works is however many media who want to cover the Fever after the game, you go into the press conference area. Let's say, I think at that game, there's probably like 10 of us that were there to talk to the Fever players. And they, like, you sit there for 10 minutes, like the players come in, Steph comes in, and the questions begin. And it's not like Steph, Caitlin are like the ones who are answering who's gonna ask questions. There's a PR lady that's standing right next to them. You can see her in some of the videos. She comes in and she's the one who's picking who's asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
She's obviously going to go with like the ESPNs, the Athletics, the people that she knows first and she trusts, or not necessarily trust, but like she has an idea that these people aren't going to come in hot with these questions. And so she's seen these like the Kendra Andrews, Alexa Philippou, Chloe Peterson for the Fever. Like she sees them everywhere. She knows them. She trusts them. And she knows what kind of questions they're going to ask. Where for me, that was my first, I just moved to LA a couple months ago. And so that was my first time going to a Sparks game and my first time covering the Fever in person this year. That lady, I tried to ask questions, but that lady didn't call on me. She intentionally looked over me. And if you go back and look at the post-game presser, it was like 6 minutes long. Like it was, I mean, they're all tired. Like they're from Indiana. It was probably midnight, 1 a.m. like Eastern time for them or Midwest time. The lady didn't want a long presser. And so she chose the people she wanted to ask. And then she said, one more question, that's it. And the presser was like 6 minutes long. And so I think, yes, that there's times where people should be asking harder questions, but I think in order to build a relationship with that person, the person who's making the decisions, you kind of have to get that person's trust. And in doing so, like the last thing that PR person wants is Steph or Caitlin getting asked a hard ass question that's going to go viral. And so she's going to try to navigate that as best as she should or she will. And that's her job. So I like don't fault her for that. But yeah, I think there's definitely more of an attempt to have hard questions asked by people than initially seems from just what you see on the actual press conference. If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I got credentialed last year for the New York Liberty online, and I was given the Zoom link, and I went into the Zoom conference, and I was on there, and I was waiting to ask a question, and then they take a Zoom question, and they took one Zoom question. So why am I
Exactly.
sitting on here? It's a
Yep.
waste of my time. I've I am, like I said, I am credentialed right now for the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, they don't vet us.
Yeah.
They let us ask questions. They know who we are, but they let us ask real questions. And Mario Cristobal gets asked real hardball questions about his team, and that's college football. And then I watch a press conference, and we have a player who has a significant injury that caused her to miss the 5th game of the season, and they've been lying about it. And that is where a lot of the stuff that happens in this league, and for people on the Caitlin Clark fan club, if you want to call us that, it's it's frustrating as can be because there is a certain weirdness in how Caitlin Clark gets covered to how other players get covered. I don't know how long you've been covering the WNBA, is it 2 years?
This is my
But
third season. Yeah.
this is your third year or the second year?
Third.
Okay. So you came in on Caitlin Clark's year one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a difference in how the reactions are? Like Caitlin Clark was box office rock star, and all these older players came in and just took a shit on her publicly, but they didn't shit on Angel Reese that way. Do you have any response to that or thoughts about why that is? Because that is something that's very frustrating because it doesn't happen in the NBA outside of LeBron when back in 03 when he got drafted and Ricky Davis basically told him, I don't think he knows what he's doing, going to come in here and run our team. But then they realized that after a day, like he was that dude. And Caitlin Clark has changed the economy of the league, and they still go out of their way. It's just very odd. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that earlier on, I think there was some in her rookie year specifically, and before that, like the Diana Taurasi comments. I think there's a little bit of resentment about her stardom and how she's just kind of like bringing all these new fans to the game. I don't necessarily agree that that has continued like by and large from the players till now. I think pretty much everyone has accepted that Caitlin is great for the game, at least the players in the game, I believe. And yeah, I think like, I mean, the vast majority of the people on the court, like she gets along with them really well. You can see it, like she's talking to them and dapping them up and stuff. And then the game starts, and Caitlin is the ultimate competitor. We've seen it. So are all these other girls. Like they're the greatest players in the world. They're competitive as hell. Like I think there's times when I think back and forth and like competitive fire is okay within the context of the game because ultimately, like, to be honest, I can't imagine that Caitlin has any ill sentiment, regardless of the comments that Tip Hayes made on social media. Just in terms of what happened on the court, I guarantee you, I'm not going to say guarantee, but I would suggest or bet that Caitlin has no ill sentiment towards Tiffany Hayes because of what was said. And the same for Tiffany. Like, I'm sure she was probably heated after that. And I would imagine that when the game happens on Thursday, like they're going to dap up, like it's going to be fine. And then they're going to compete once the game starts. And then once the game ends, they're going to be back to being normal. And so to go back to your question, I think, again, like this Caitlin brought a whole new level of status and prestige to this game. And I think everyone, players, media, coaches, fans, everyone's still trying to learn to acclimate to it. And there's growing pains, and it's going to be a process for everyone, I think.
So you brought up the Tiffany Hayes thing. So I agree on the court stuff. I got no problem with it. I coach basketball. I coach high level 17U boys basketball, and those guys compete at a very, very high level. And so I had no problem when the trash talking back and forth between the two of them after Caitlin hit that 35-footer. No problem. The social media commentary, though, quite frankly, is off the wall. And they have been historically saying that Caitlin Clark fans have been making death threats and this, that, and the other. They provide no texts, no emails, no phone calls, nothing. Caitlin Clark has a stalker who's in prison right now. That's a fact. Paige Becker's had a stalker after her. I don't know if that guy went to prison or not, but I know he was arrested, and I don't know if he got probation or what his sentence was. But listening to her basically laugh about someone talking about I know what that meant. I'm from South Florida, and I'm in a black fraternity. I grew up around black people. I know what that meant. That's not a joke. That's not a game. We've had a president have 4 assassination attempts on him in 2 years. These people are unhinged. There's unhinged humans on social media. So for her to engage that and kind of laugh at it and think it's funny, it's kind of despicable. And this is a league that's preaching no space for hate while having a player almost engage that hate. What are your thoughts on that? And that's really what I think would set everybody off is your video came on that. And I guess, you then clarified later on, but if anyone does that, I think they should be suspended. I don't care if it's Tiffany Hayes, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Asia Wilson. That's just I've never seen that in football, NBA, baseball, hockey, nothing. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so before answering that specifically, let me just address because I didn't actually address the videos earlier when you asked me about it. So I'll say going into yesterday morning. So yesterday morning is when I first saw those comments from Tip Hayes, and I was like, okay, like wow, that's definitely something that's gonna get attention. And to be honest, like I had this video idea of me talking about like the relationship between players and fans and the media, like through social media. Like it's been on my mind percolating for a few days, and I knew I wanted to do a video about it. And so when I first saw these comments, I was like, okay, that's the perfect way for me like to get in because I know that there's going to be interest around this anyways. And so I said this in the video in my video today, that I approached that video not wanting to talk about the comments themselves and talk about the comments, the fact that there's engagement between a player and fans on social media as a whole, and how to me, I think that's ultimately good for the league. In the first video, I didn't say that, first of all, so I should have said that. But I also didn't ever endorse Tip Hayes doing that. And I think that's kind of what frustrated me about some of the comments that I saw because I never endorsed her doing that. And as I said in the second video, which I'll say again right now, I agree with you. I think that was not the right thing to do. Like she was in the wrong to do that. And it's definitely, I said that like not all discourse is good. Discourse in that every time a player is interacting with a fan is good. And I should have made that more clear in the first video, but I didn't. And I'll own that. Like that's on me. But yeah, I think that was, I mean, ultimately, look, and for the death threat thing, like I did get two death threats today. I'm not going to give you proof of them, but like I didn't believe that happened. But like I got two today via
Okay.
email, so it happens.
Okay.
And it's like
Should never happen. That's terrible.
agreed. Yeah, it's not. It shouldn't ever get to that level. But yeah, I think it was wrong what Tip did. I also like. I mean, do we really think that the person that she's talking to is gonna take whatever Tip said like as proof that she should go like attack Caitlyn? I personally don't think so, and I don't think like Caitlyn is a gigantic star, and as you said before, like she's already dealt with stalkers in her life. She's gonna deal with creepy fans and stalkers regardless of what's said on social media. And so I don't necessarily think a WNBA player like saying that to her is going to convince that fan to actually go do something. Like it just, I mean, we know like it's just social media trolls like trying to find some fodder to talk about, especially anti Caitlin Clark fans. Like, yeah, it's annoying as hell, but that's the reality of the WNBA right now. And so, yeah, I think what Tip did was not right. And I don't think that's the way a fan should be engaging with the player, but I also don't think it necessitated as strong as a reaction as a god. And especially like, I mean, for me, just someone covering, like, I don't think, like, I think a lot of people were talking about inciting violence. That's what Tip was doing. But I mean, a lot of the videos about me today, like, people were essentially doing the exact same thing that they were just condoning from Tip Hayes. And these, like, there's a lot of, I mean, check your comment section, check the other videos comment section. Like, there's a lot of people shitting on me right now, which, like, okay, that's fine. But that's, I mean, it feels kind of hypocritical for someone to be condemning Tip Hayes, what Tip Hayes said, and then also spewing the same thing about another person in the WNBA media.
I have personally had at least 5 videos dedicated to me from other podcasts. I'm not a WNBA media member. I'm a podcaster. I've had them threaten me through video to where I figured out I learned I work in legal. So I know exactly where they live, where they work, where they eat, where they sleep, just in case something is to happen, because there are people that are unhinged. So I'm going to presume that probably not, that person's not that crazy and it's just social media, but there could always be that individual that is unhinged, and there are unhinged humans out there. And I have experienced all kinds of nasty comments to myself on videos by other people. And I think that the WNBA as a league is standing on some type of no hate, but it only seems to work one way. It seems to work one way. Caitlin Clark has gone out of her way to do everything she can, and she walks out with Morgan Wallen, and now she's this racist piece of shit. That's what came out that day when she walked out with a country music singer, while there's been multiple black athletes who have walked out with that same country music singer. There's people are crazy, and it's great for players to engage with fans, but when they start going from that direction of violence and being off the wall and crazy, you need to stop that as a player. I'm like, no, you can't. That's not even funny. And then on top of that, Tiffany Hayes, after the game, was caught on a hot mic talking shit about Caitlin Clark and her fouls or whatever, when Caitlin Clark gets fouled 5 times a play. I mean, they've been fouling the crap out of her for 3 years. For 3 years. And largely, she doesn't get the calls that players like an Asia Wilson gets, or even Paige Beckers gets right now in this league. So I push back on the, just because we think it probably won't happen. The WNBA needs to do something about it, because they preach this no space for hate, but they don't follow it. They had no problem doing an investigation on monkey noises last year. What were your thoughts on that? Because the player that supposedly was the victim of it, Angel Reese, she was supposedly 5 feet from it, but never heard it until people on social media, Chicago Sky fans, Angel Reese fans, started posting this stuff. And then the WNBA does some massive investigation and finds nothing. What are your thoughts of stuff like that?
Yeah, I agree that that was just really handled poorly all of last year. Like all around, that was just wrong. That was wrongly handled by the WNBA. And yeah, I mean, again, like I don't think what I agree. Like Tip should not have said what she said, and I don't think that's right. And I think there probably should be consequences at some point, or like at least to some degree, or at least maybe not even consequences necessarily, but like proper media training, or at least have all these players understand what the consequences of their actions can be. Because as you're right, there's a lot of crazy fans out there, but I guess for me, it's just I don't necessarily think that interaction, like her saying that, yes, it was wrong, and I don't agree that she said it, but I just don't think that really increases the chances of Kaylin being harassed or stalked by that specific fan any more than they would have otherwise. Because I mean, as you said, like Trump has dealt with however many assassination attempts in the past 2 years. Like no one knew about those people beforehand. Like it kind of just comes out of the blue regardless. And so you can't really like pinpoint and predict these things necessarily based off of what someone's saying on social media.
How do you think this? How do you think the WNBA media can get better at reporting on these teams and what's happening, and really digging deeper into the of what's going on when you watch games, and how you and criticism? It seems like there's an anti-criticism that exists in the WNBA. You can't criticize anyone. Jackie Young is 0 for 14 in her last 2 games. I criticize her, and I get all kinds of comments. Well, Jackie Young's going through something. Well, I don't care. That's not my job to care. That's not my job to care. If you are unable to do your job, then you should probably stay home that day and not play. People do it all the time now. But it's like, but if Caitlin Clark went 0 for 14 for 2 games, nobody would care. And they would tell you that she's the worst basketball player on the planet. Why is what is the reason for these double standards? Because I don't see the WNBA media saying anything. I mean, Kennedy Carter should be the starter at in Vegas, in my opinion. But do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely, I mean, I don't know where you're consuming your WNBA content. It sounds like it's a lot of visual stuff. Personally, like as a writer, like that's my job is,
No, I watch videos. So I watch all of it.
Okay. So, I mean, I would say that, yeah, at times there's some bias, but I think there's definitely people doing a lot of good, objective, critical work when it lends itself. Like, I mean, I'll say like I've been critical of players in the past. Like I've been critical about Angel's struggles when she was struggling to make layups. I was critical of Caitlin last year when she couldn't make a three to save her life. Like for me, when over that stretch, to me, it's like if like I'm also the first person to credit like I did an article about all the records Caitlin broke a couple of days ago. I think you have to be objective, and I think the people who are consuming the content need to be more okay with everyone getting criticized at times when they deserve it, because as you said, like the WNBA media is different than all the other sports medias right now, because all the other teams are allowed to be objective and they can ask the hard questions and like say what needs to actually be said. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I just don't think the WNBA is quite there yet, but I think it's happening. And I think one way to make it better is that there's so much tribalism in the WNBA right now among fans and among media to a degree. But yeah, I think that it just needs to, like, not everyone needs to be so reactive about things. And when you have something critical to say it. If you stand on it, stand 10 toes on it. And that's your opinion. Like if you get pushback on it, then you get it. And ultimately, like whatever you put on the internet is yours to deal with regardless. And so I think the more coverage there is in that way, then that's only going to improve the overall product of how the game's covered.
Oh, I mean, I'm a person that doesn't give a shit. Honestly, I comment on whatever I think, and I voice my opinions on things that I think Caitlin Clark needs to stop doing, like incessantly complaining to referees. It drives me crazy because I did coach, and I would tell my player to shut the hell up if they were trying to do something like that. And in high school, you get a technical foul real fast. You wouldn't get all that leeway. And then but then you have the Angel Reese component where somehow she shoots 35% from the floor for the first 5 games, and then but she grabs some rebounds. Okay, great. She 35% from the floor. She's 6'3", standing under the rim. Caitlin Clark though was terrible. Couldn't make a 3-pointer last year. Yeah, but people didn't care that she was dealing with a groin injury, a quad injury, and couldn't jump. Nobody cared. And that's there's just certain inconsistencies in how I see certain things viewed and approached, even from ESPN media, where I'm still waiting for the day to listen to someone from the WNBA, from a Nafisa Collier, from a Brianna Stewart, from any one of these old veterans, actually give Caitlin Clark a little credit. They've never done so in 3 years. It's going on 3 years. They've never said anything nice about her, like publicly, but everyone wants her to kiss the ring and defend, Black American athletes and the women before her and the LGBTQ. Like, do you see that, or am I crazy? I mean, let me know, because I don't see it. I've never heard it. There's very few players that have ever said anything nice about Caitlin Clark publicly who are not on her team. And I've ripped Lexi Hull, I've ripped Aaliyah Boston, I've ripped Kelsey Mitchell. I've criticized Caitlin Clark. I've lost hundreds of subscribers over my comments on players. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, just because I think a lot of players, I mean, like, if you've seen it, like if you watch a press conference, like pretty much every time someone's playing the Fever, either the coach or a player is asked about Caitlin Clark after the game or before the game. And the vast majority of the time, it's just like the same, like, yeah, she's great. Like, what else do you really want me to say? Like, I think she gets talked about a lot, but it's usually just like the same response, that it doesn't really ever go viral or get that much attention. But I mean, I know that Brianna Stewart's given Caitlin Clark a lot of love in the past, and they have a great relationship together. I don't know if you remember the Fever Liberty game last year, when I think it was like the 10th game of the year. The Liberty were 9-0. Caitlin, it was in New York, and Caitlin
When
went
she went
nuts.
off? When she went
Yeah,
off.
and there was that time where Caitlin made the deep three over Stewie, and then they
Mm-hmm.
had a moment, and they're
Yes.
like, Stewart was clearly happy for her, not happy for her, but like she was cool with that happening. That was a really cool moment to me, and I think that was sort of an example of like the league starting to accept Caitlin, and it
I
doesn't always
thought
have.
so at the time too, but they don't publicly really they
Like, do we need her? Do we need Stewart to like be praising Caitlin
yeah.
every month or every time? Like, what? But why? Like, we already know how she feels about. Like, if I feel like if we really, all the players that we think have something bitter about Caitlin right now, like we probably already know that, just given the stuff they said in the past. Like, if someone's not saying anything about Caitlin, I wouldn't take that as them that they don't like Caitlin. It's just like they've already made their opinion clear. They'll praise her when they're asked about it, but they're not asked about it that much. And if they are, then they're just going to say the same thing that they've said again. That's why I think like the whole Stephanie White like vitriol right now is kind of wild, because like Steph gets asked about Caitlin all the time, and she's always, I mean, not always, but like for the most part, she praises Caitlin. But now it's just like she's asked about her so many times that it's just like the same cookie cutter response at this point, and it kind of comes across as like nonchalant, or at least a little bit dismissive. But to me, that's just because she's been saying the same thing for 2 years now, and there really isn't that much to say, at least in terms of like praising her, if that makes sense.
I watch every Stephanie White video. I don't know what videos you're watching. I don't see that. I've listened to her. I listened to her with Kelsey Mitchell, and there's proof of it. Kelsey Mitchell having a terrible first half and then having a great second half, and being asked about her and her praising the crap out of Kelsey Mitchell, and then watching Caitlin Clark have a similar atrocious 2.5 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter completely erupting like she did versus Washington, and she couldn't say a nice thing about her in that same press conference, similar press conference. She couldn't say a nice thing about her. It was wild. So
Yeah.
maybe you're hearing something I don't hear, because I literally have a segment called Daily Dose of Stephanie White, because I'm very analytical with words and how people because it's like should, could, would, like there are different meanings. We know this. And I listen to Stephanie White. She's very condescending, in my opinion. She constantly gets up there and says she has no idea about medicals. Ask the medical team. Well, the medical team's not available to answer a question. So you're the person that we're supposed to speak to. So you being a condescending asshole to us is not exactly professional, in my opinion. You have your best player. People are traveling across the world to come see Caitlin Clark play, and they're lying to their fan base about her health. They did it last year for the entirety of the season, and it's there's a direct correlation, in my opinion, to their attendance dropping because people don't trust this franchise and are praying that, oh, I'm gonna spend $3,000 to go across the country to go watch Caitlin play. And there's proof of these things happening, and find out, oh, the day of the game, she's not playing.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And that pisses people off, honestly.
Sure. Yeah, I agree that the injury handling has been weird, and like basically everything you just said, I agree with that. I think that specific press conference, I think the way that Steph answered the questions about Caitlin was kind of weird. But as I just said, like I think that's more a byproduct of her just being like frustrated that she keeps getting asked about it, which isn't. I'm not like trying to defend her, excuse her. Like that's just how I interpret what she's saying. And yeah, I could not agree more about the like Steph answers injury questions weird. She always has, especially with Caitlin. And I think a lot of times it's because she doesn't know, but I agree. Like she could be answering those questions better. And I think it's just weird in general. Like this is kind of an aside, but it's just so weird to me, like how late it takes the Fever specifically to get injury updates. Like today, Kelsey Plum sprained her ankle, and it was like a couple hours later we figure out that she had a sprained ankle. It takes the Fever like 2 or 3 days to get information to people, which is really frustrating. And not just like with Aaliyah Boston too. It's like it's not just Caitlin, and so yeah, I agree on that front. But yeah, I mean, I guess, and again, like agree to disagree. Like if these are like, to me, this is like a basketball conversation. And so it's like, we can see things differently. Like that's totally fine. I personally think that Steph has done a pretty good, not perfect, but a pretty good job handling the added platform and scrutiny that comes with being Caitlin's coach. I think they definitely have a good relationship with each other, even though, I mean, again, like Caitlin's a competitor, Steph's a competitor. Like, yeah, maybe there's some frustration, but I mean, we've seen frustration between freaking Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and all the great, like freaking Phil Jackson and Kobe. Like you see this happen between a great coach and a great player. I don't think what their frustration at each other, especially like in the moment, is indicative of them having any hostility or vitriol towards each other.
I'm not one that makes a big deal over coaches and players yelling at each other. I coached, so I don't make a big. I know there are certain people that do make a big deal about that. I don't really care about all that much. That I don't make I don't make videos on stuff like that because I've coached, I've played, and if you're a player and you were anything decent for your team, your coach yelled at you at some point, and you yelled at your coach potentially. So I don't make a big deal about that, but I do think there are weird things that go on with this franchise. They're very odd. You mentioned the injury reports. Those injury reports are significant, and they take days to come out, and they're always seeming. I mean, I look at them 4:45. Caitlin Clark's not on the report yet. Oh, 5 o'clock. Now she's on the report. Something like that. It's like, the situation. Like this back situation is insane to me as they're passing it off as if it's not important, and it's very important. So, yeah, I just would, as a person who's I'm almost 50, watched Michael Jordan play basketball. The guy would get body slammed in the 80s. I don't know if you watched, if you're a historian on the NBA and seen video, like he would get body slammed. Now, the new generation of NBA fan thinks that Michael Jordan is just a guy, and they think all these guys today are the most incredible things on earth, which is crazy to me. My son would be one of them. But there were rule changes, and it seems like, and he was still getting body slammed, but Caitlin Clark dealt with fouling that you don't see. And I watch a lot of WNBA games. I don't know, do you cover an individual team? You cover the entire league?
Yeah. I'm also glad you asked this because you did say that I don't cover the Fever. I specifically covered the Indiana Fever on SI. Like that's
okay. I didn't, because I thought Robert Lundberg did that.
I'm Robin's, like I'm his main writer. Like
he's okay. Didn't know that. Well, good to know.
Yeah. So Fever on SI, then also Women's Fast Break on SI, which is like the general on SI WNBA one and college basketball one. So yeah, those are my two main ones. I like split time between those two.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. I did not know that. I thought you were probably covering the entire league. So, I forgot where I was going with this.
The like rule changes.
The rule, like so, but Caitlin Clark's been the victim of being clotheslined by people and not having a foul called. And then, like a Marina Mabry, she's gone out of her way to try to take Caitlin Clark out multiple times beyond normal basketball stuff. And that is why I believe leaders in the Players Association, you should stop and recognize that you just got a massive CBA deal largely because of Caitlin Clark. They can sit here and puff out their chests, but we're not stupid. There's an economy that Caitlin Clark brought that did not exist. There's a viewership that came that did not exist, but they're going to sit here and puff their chests out. And then it wasn't until CBA time where Nafisa Collier brings up Caitlin Clark's name. But during the season, it was like, oh, it's all of us. It's me too. No, it's not you two. It's not. Like we can know what we know. It's not you two. It's no one knew who the hell you were. Like people didn't know who they were largely. I watch women's college basketball, so I knew who they were, but the general public didn't know who they were. The Fever were getting 4,000 fans a game with Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. Caitlin shows up, sold out. Like, why can't they just sit here and acknowledge it? What is so hard about that for folks? I don't get it. And this is a women's petty thing, I think, as well. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that like the Caitlin Clark effect is unavoidable, and I think that anyone who's trying to avoid or dismiss how that she has been the sole factor for the CBA would be delusional and fooling themselves. But I think, again, like I don't really think that many people are like dismissing that at this point. I just don't think they're like openly saying it all the time because I think it's been said in the past, and I think they clearly believe it. And then regarding the rule stuff, I mean, they are changing. They did try to change the rules this year, and there's been too many fouls called. I would also say that that's probably like I'd say Caitlin was a byproduct of that because I agree, like she was fouled hardly and fouled a lot, and a lot of fouls weren't called on her in her first 2 years. I'm not going to say that that's the only reason that they changed the foul call and like they're more strict about fouls getting called because that was throughout the league. Like it was just a physical league more than necessary. And they have tried to this year. They made a conscious effort to fix that in the offseason, and it has. Like I think they overcorrected a little bit, and they need to kind of go back on that some. But it's been better, and I think it's a less physical league right now than it was a year ago. And I think the league deserves credit for at least making that change.
I mean, I can't argue with it. The players are. I just think that when Nafisa Collier got hurt last year at the end of the year, and then she went on her like a day later, 2 days later, she's given her speech that she would never have made had she not gotten hurt, in my opinion. But they went out of their way to complain about the referees. Hell, Breanna Stewart got 17 free throws yesterday and still complaining about the referees. I'm a little bit confused. You got 17 free throws.
Yeah, agreed.
But Caitlin Clark, the freedom of movement, even I do think the foul calls are going over the top. But again, these are the same people that when Caitlin Clark showed up, oh, it's a real physical league. This is what we pride ourselves on, physical basketball. And the reality is it's just they foul a lot because I watch women's basketball, I watch men's basketball. They foul a lot. They fall. There's not the same athleticism and there's certain clumsiness at times, or you don't know if it's a foul or not. Like you watch the Fever, Lexi Hall. She falls on the floor 15 times a game.
Caitlin, do you see Caitlin talk about that today?
No, I did not. She mentioned that?
Yeah, she joked about Lexi always being on the ground today during her practice presser. It was funny.
I'll check that out. But Lexi falls on the ground whether she touched or not. She just falls. I think she's slightly clumsy. And I think Lexi Hall fouls a lot and she gets away with it because she's perceived as a good defensive player. But now they're complaining that there's too many fouls. Like you begged for this, now you've got it, and now you're complaining about it. And I did watch the Mystics Seattle game. They both had 34 free throws and 38 free throws in that game. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's like they complain about it, but really they're supposed to adjust themselves defensively. Stop fouling. Shuffle your feet. Stop reaching.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, as I said, like I think it's been overcorrected to the point where it's like a WNBA game should not be 2.5 hours, and that's just like now these games are like around 2.5 hours, which is ridiculously long, especially the ones that are on national TV. Like they push past that sometimes, which is insane. But I mean, let's be honest. Like I know you watch a lot of sports. I mean, players complain about fouls and penalties in every sport, and that's never going to change no matter what the rules are.
Yes.
And I think, and so yeah, I think that's inevitable within the WNBA and just sports as a whole. And I do think, as I said, like I think the WNBA deserves credit for actively trying to fix that problem because I think it was more of an issue. Like I think if we're talking about like injury risk, like you need to protect your best players and just protect players in general. And so I think them trying to correct that was correct in general to do. And I think the league's in a better spot now because of them doing that.
What are you, what are your thoughts of? I'm gonna ask you some just random questions about the comparisons that are made, the comparisons that are made with Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. Fair or unfair?
In terms of their games,
Yeah,
um, I think it's fair because I think it's natural for fans to want to compare people. Like that's just what sports is. Like we're always going to compare like the great quarterbacks or MJ and LeBron, MJ Kobe. Like that's just how sports works. And so I think it's fair in that regard. I think they have completely different skill sets on the court, and I
I
think they're
agree.
like, let's be honest. Like I think it's clear that Caitlin's a bigger star than Paige, and I agree. Like I also think it's fair to compare their stardom. Like that's what happens. Like people get compared. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'll let the stats speak for themselves. Like I'd say Caitlin is statistically having a better season, but I think Paige is one of the best. I came out with like my own top 10 for the best players in the league a couple weeks ago. I had Caitlin at 3, I had Paige at I think 6 maybe. So I think they're two of the best players in the league. Maybe Paige is 5, but I mean I just think they're both great for the game. They're fun as hell to watch, and I love seeing them compete against each other.
What did you think of ESPN putting Caitlin number 10?
That was I'll send you the article that I wrote about it specifically afterwards because
Okay.
you're talking about being critical. Like I was extremely, and I did a video about it actually as well. But
Okay.
yeah, it was ridiculous because I mean I had Asia first. I think that's totally fair. I had
Mhm.
Nafisa second,
Yeah.
because I didn't like this was we knew she was hurt, but like I didn't count injuries because I didn't think that was fair.
Yeah.
And I had Caitlin third, and so I think they had Alyssa Thomas at 2 maybe, which was
Yes.
wild to me.
Yes.
To me, that was the most wild thing of all, like that and the
Insane.
Caleb thing. But yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous. And I think ESPN's done a lot of that in the past, just like kind of not crapping on her, but like I think they know what they're doing when they're not putting her as high as they should in these articles.
Do you think it's a strategic ploy to get people to go off
I think that
potentially?
I think that getting page views gets them more money than not getting page views, and they know that getting people engaged and potentially frustrated about where Caitlin is placed is going to get them more page views and ultimately more money, because that's how
But
this
then,
economy works.
yeah, I agree. But those are supposed to be professional journalists doing that. So they're playing a game, which to me makes them completely unethical.
Yeah,
They're not honoring their profession, and that's bothersome to me. And I agree with you. It's a possibility, maybe even a probability. But if they're doing that, that to me is despicable because it's against what their profession is.
yeah. I don't think they're like consciously doing. Like, let me be clear. I don't think they're like consciously being like, yeah, let's like put Caitlin farther down than we should because
10th, I mean 10th.
yeah, I mean,
That
no,
was
like I agree, it's
She was
insane.
the fifth or sixth guard. Like
I
that
think
was
they
nuts.
tried. Did they try to justify it by saying that? I don't know if they did this,
She
but
was hurt. Like
yeah, that
she
was
was
based
hurt
off of
last.
last year.
Yeah,
It's like that's why I didn't base mine off of injuries because that's ridiculous. Like it should be about like heading into the 2026 season, assuming everyone's healthy, like who are the 10 best players. That
yeah.
was how I personally like did my own list. So yeah, that was ridiculous. I mean I hope that these ESPN writers don't like have that kind of ulterior motive, but and I don't think they do. I think it's just like I don't know. I think they're okay, here it is. I think ESPN over anyone else, especially these like big legacy companies, are like ultra conscious of putting her on a pedestal and kind of glorifying her. And so I think that maybe subconsciously, maybe consciously, but they feel obliged to give like the Alyssa Thomases of the world, the Brianna Stewarts of the world, like the I forget which guards are above her, like Jackie Young,
Jackie
Blonde.
Young.
Yeah, like those like I think they almost feel like obliged to put these players above Caitlin just to like give them their credit. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying I agree with them doing that, but maybe that's one reason why we see Caitlin farther down than we should on some of these lists.
So I guess the next question that I would have in reference to the page conversation is that we view, or at least I view Caitlyn in a certain light, and a lot of people base greatness on if you win a championship or not. I grew up in Miami, Florida. And I saw your group. You're from the Bay Area, right?
Mhm,
So there's probably statues of Joe Montana around town at the stadium, I'm guessing.
mhm,
Joe Montana was the Dan Marino arch, the nemesis type thing. That was when Marino's first Super Bowl. People thought, oh, Marino will get there many more times after, and never got there again. Joe Montana had Jerry Rice. He had Roger Craig. He had a monster defense. He had a great, great team. But most people think talent for talent, Dan Marino was better than Joe Montana, arm talent wise. Like, and it's hard to argue it. Although you could, but they'll say, oh, championships. But Marino never had a running back. He never had a defense. He was just, it was him, his arm talent. Caitlin Clark carried a bunch of baggage at Iowa, and people discount going to a national championship twice as successful, and then praise Paige Beckers because she won a national championship in her 5th year playing with 10 McDonald's All-Americans. I mean, I argue that Sarah Strong right now would be Caitlin Clark's best teammate, including Aaliyah Boston right now, and Kelsey Mitchell, and Paige had her in college, while also having AZ Flood on the team and all these elite players on her team. And they use that as a barometer of being great. And then they say, oh, well, she's more efficient. Well, Joe Montana was more efficient than Dan Marino because Dan Marino was chucking the ball all over the field. What are your thoughts on something like that when they use efficiency? And it's not like Caitlin's inefficient. She's just not shooting 50% from the floor. She's carrying everything in my opinion. I mean, her load is so much greater than Paige, for example. And even, I mean, you're watching it right now. I mean, I don't know what your opinion is on it, but the backup point guard position with Indiana right now is messy, in my opinion. What are your thoughts of that?
On comparing Paige and Caitlin in college?
Yeah, based on using championships as a barometer of someone being better than somebody because they didn't win a championship. Like, I think that's totally unfair. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I think in college that's not right to do because I mean Caitlin was, well, first of all, like Caitlin was there for 4 years, Paige was there for 5. So if you're talking about both their 4 years, neither of them won a championship. Yeah. But also like that's only 4 years. And I think it's more okay to do that in a professional career. Like once they both played 15 years, then I think it's okay to like use championships as a good gauge for whose career is better. Not the only gauge, but like a good gauge for it. I don't think the same for college because like you have no control over which players are coming in. You don't necessarily in the WNBA, but like, I mean, obviously like players want to come play with Caitlin and Indiana. So like there's some influence there, but also, yeah, I mean, Caitlin carried the Fever or carried the Hawkeyes to 2 national championships in the span of 2 years. Like I think she deserves a ton of credit for that. And I think, I mean, let the records speak for themselves. Like I think Caitlin had probably the best college career of all time. And I don't think her not winning a championship should discredit that. Yeah.
I had a thought in my brain and it just disappeared. I'm trying to think of what I was saying. I had it in my brain, then you stopped. I thought you were going to continue. The GM lists. Jackie Young, number 1 shooting guard. Last year, Caitlin Clark's number 1 shooting guard. Chelsea Gray is number 1 point guard. Don't understand it. I've been watching Chelsea Gray play enough basketball. I don't see what the hell they see. It's very, very odd to me. And now last year I believe it was tied for number 1 point guard.
Yeah.
Then it's Caitlin's not even in the conversation. It's Chelsea Gray. Jackie Young's averaging a career 14, 4, and 4. I don't get it at all. And then you've got, who would you start your franchise with? Paige Beckers. Mm-hmm. What is wrong with these GMs? I mean, are they stuck in, what is their deal? Because this is, again, it's almost like I'm going to cut my nose to spite my face, knowing that the person that's broken countless records in year 1 had a season that if Caitlin Clark maintained her rookie year for her career, she's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. It's not even a conversation, but yet I expect her to be better than that. Because that was her base. That was the floor. That's not the ceiling. For Jackie Young, that would be the ceiling. For Chelsea Gray, that would be the ceiling. And yet there's this viewpoint that, and I think even for Paige Beckers, that's the ceiling. There's this viewpoint that now all of a sudden she's not this, not that. Well, we've seen 2 double-doubles, a 3rd near double-double. I mean, even with the injury situation, she looks really good. I mean, what do you say to the GMs that make a decision like that? I don't know if you did any articles on that or videos.
I did, yeah. I've also done a couple strong articles on that. I think it's ridiculous. First of all, like especially the franchise one, because I mean, I talked about the Caitlin Clark effect earlier. Like just trying to say that some other player could have more of an effect on your franchise in terms of not just what happens on the court, but everything that happens off the court in terms of the attention and revenue. Like, let's be honest, that's the most important thing for these franchises, revenue that you can get. It should have been 100% for Caitlin. Like, that's just how I feel. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. I'm guessing, similar to the ESPN thing, I'm guessing that the GMs were basing it off of last year, which doesn't make sense to me because that just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to do these kind of surveys. So yeah, I think that was absurd. And then and similar with the Chelsea Gray thing, like I think because Chelsea just won a championship with the Aces and like kind of solidified herself as an all-time great point guard at this point, I think that's probably why they were saying that. And maybe it comes back to the same thing I was saying about ESPN. Like they feel like they kind of need to give these veterans their due instead of just like praising Caitlin, which again, I'm not saying I agree with. Like maybe that's just their thought process. And then, okay, you might know this. This really confused me about the survey. When they say best shooting guard, do they mean like the best two or the best shooting guard, like guard who shoots?
I think they meant the best two guard, not the
Okay, yeah.
best like,
Then
percentage wise.
why was Kaylin on it 2 years ago?
She was number one last year.
I know, but like why? Like she's a point guard, and so that's why
because I think they're stupid. They don't.
Yeah.
Because she could be the best of both, realistically, in my opinion. Because some people think she's a shooting guard, other people think she's a point. I mean, I know she's a point guard, but I think Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry's a shooting guard, but they list him as a point guard.
That's why I was confused about this year's voting because I thought that I saw Caitlin was voted as that in the 2025 survey. I thought that they meant like a guard who shoots, which I think Caitlin should be the best like shooting guard.
Yeah.
But then this year, I forget who it was, but it definitely. I don't think Caitlin was even on the list.
No, she was. Jackie Young was number one.
Yeah, and so that clearly makes it that it's the two guard, and so that was absurd.
I just thought that was insane, and it's just there. It seems like this is. It just seems to go completely against what you benefit from as a league. Like, if Caitlin Clark stopped playing in the WNBA today, where do you think this would go? Like, Indiana Fever, who I largely call Caitlin Clark fans, would cancel their tickets overnight. They would not renew, and that building would have 6,000 people next year.
Mm-hmm.
The viewership in the league would go down the drain overnight, and they think it wouldn't. Yet they're throwing on images Raven Johnson versus Zaya Cook. Come on, dude. Like that's outrageous. Michael Jordan would be on every poster on the planet. We got to stop worrying about people's feelings. We've had now I remember the Fever put an image of Damaris Dantas as the reason to come to a game. I mean, they put her on the image. Like, you would never put Damaris Dantas as the image for tonight's game. Like, that's nuts. And they've now done it for Ravens. And I like Raven Johnson. I think she's a very sweet girl. I think she has massive limitations, but they've used her on 2 of the last 3 games or whatever it was on the Indiana or WNBA social media. It's like, come on. Like, this is, you put the best player out there. You put Jordan, you put Bird, you put Magic, you put now LeBron. You still put LeBron. LeBron's still the face of the NBA, no matter, even if I don't like him very much, he's still the face of the league. So I ask, like, why do they do these things to almost like they don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be something that exists within the league because these are women and they're sensitive and petty and whatever the hell else? And I say that because there's no other logical. I mean, Caitlin should be on every image if I'm selling this thing.
I would say to that, I think the reason that the WNBA is trying to do that is because they're trying to grow other players into stars. And like, to me, when I saw that, like, yeah, I think it's a little, like Raven Johnson comes from a gigantic college program. Like, Raven Johnson is a name in the league for sure, I would say, regardless of the amount of playing time or that she comes off the bench. But like, people know who she is compared to like probably everyone aside from like Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Sophie Cunningham. I'd say Raven's probably the 4th most notable name on the Fever in terms of like broader like women's basketball consciousness. And so for me, I don't think that's like egregious putting her on there. But also like to me, like putting myself in the shoes of whoever created that graphic, I think that if someone who actually like follows Caitlin Clark in the Fever saw that graphic, they already knew that Caitlin was playing in that game. And so they don't necessarily need to put Caitlin on every graphic because I think and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm saying like, if I'm that person, my thought process, like whoever's in charge of making that decision is that anyone who's actually going to sit down and watch the game they already know that Caitlin is going to be playing in that game and that she's on the Fever. So then when they see someone in a Fever jersey playing at 4 p.m. or whatever it is, like they know to tune in. Where like, I mean, yeah, maybe there's some casual fans that like don't really make that connection, but yeah, I think I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and like I do think that they should probably highlight Caitlin more on the WNBA social media pages that they do, but I think it's okay to mix in like a Raven Johnson or a Sophie Cunningham or an Aaliyah
Yeah,
Boston every once in a while, just to because I mean, like everyone, there needs to be. I mean, ideally, like everyone is on the same. It's never going to happen, but everyone's like a bigger star and then closer to the same level as Caitlin, because that's ultimately, as you said, like that's going to make the game's growth and trajectory more sustainable once Caitlin inevitably does leave when she's like retires.
I got a couple more before I let you go, and I appreciate your time tonight. Folks, this is Grant Young from Sports Illustrated. If you just jumped on in, covers the Indiana Fever. Um, what are your thoughts of Angel Reese as a player?
I
What are
think
your thoughts of as a player? What are your true thoughts of Angel Reese as a player? You cover this game in comparison to the, which I'm sure you've seen on social media, you've seen it in videos, the over the topness that might also exist with Caitlin Clark, but I don't think it really exists the same way because when someone questions, oh, well, Caitlin was 2 of 9, like Caitlin Clark went 9 of 17, 53% from the floor in that game against second game of the year. I think she was 9 of 17 and she was 2 of 9 from the three, and she had 24 points and I think 9 assists. And the commentary from that side that doesn't like her was she can't shoot. Her job is to shoot. I thought you guys said she was a shooter. Well, she shot 53% from the floor and had 24 points. I thought that's what the goal was at the end of the day. So she had a bad shooting night, but she counteracted it by making, getting to the bucket, hitting easy buckets. Then the next game, she goes 10 of 28. She's 2 of 15, but then finishes 8 of 13. And then they go the opposite way and say, well, she was 10 of 28. She was completely inefficient. Well, yeah, for 3 quarters, she was awful. The
mm-hmm.
last quarter in overtime, she was fantastic, and she's the only reason they were in that game. Otherwise, they lose again by 15 points. It's like you said she's a shooter, so that game she goes 7 of 16 from three. Like, well, but you do that to Angel Reese, who as of last week is leading the WNBA in turnovers, but they'll never acknowledge that. Yeah, I think it's flipped now. But what are your thoughts of stuff like that when Angel Reese, where the back and forth with the Angel Reese thing, and your thoughts of her as a player?
As a player, I think she's the best rebounder in the league for sure.
I would agree.
I think she definitely has. I mean, like obviously she's not as much of a dynamic scorer. What I'll say is that I think she has good footwork. She has good post moves. She's not a great finisher. We know that. I think I would have hoped that she was able to develop her shooting a little bit more, like her mid-range jumper. To this point, like this is her third season, obviously. And so I was hoping to see more development from her in that regard. And I think she also gets caught up. She isn't a new team and a new system, which I think is hard. And like, I think that deserves some patience and growing pains. But I think she gets caught trying to do too much at times and almost like trying to prove that she is dynamic as a player, which I think she is. But like, I mean, the Dream have 2 elite guards. Like Angel should not be taking the ball up the court. It should be Alicia Gray or Ryan Howard. And I think Angel like gets caught up. She did that with the Sky too, but like that was different because the Sky didn't have other good players around her, and like she was probably the best ball handler on that roster. But she doesn't need to do that with a Dream anymore. And I think that's gonna like she'll learn that. I think that'll come. But yeah, I think she's an incredible rebounder. Her finishing still needs to get better. I think her overall offensive game could improve. In terms of like the discourse, I think both, I mean, we know it, like it's super tribal, and both Kaylin and Angel, like they're going to have a specific subset of people on social media that are going to hate on whatever they do. Like, I'm sure you've seen all the people, like, as you just said, like people are going to hate on Caitlin no matter what, because these are like social media trolls that are bitter about her success and her platform in the league. And the same is with Angel. Like people are going to, I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen all the viral posts whenever she like breaks a shot or does something bad. It's like the, whatever, like the X profiles are, they do it and it gets like 3 million views. Like this is inevitable. And I think that's kind of a byproduct of them both being gigantic stars, because I mean, like every huge star has haters, but I think they're just kind of amplified a little bit more in the WNBA.
I would push back on her footwork. I don't think her footwork's that good. I think she's very clumsy personally. I think she has the ability to, if she just understood her role and accepted her role. I think she thinks she's better than she really is. And she won't accept her. She refuses to accept her role. Grab rebounds, kick the ball out, or grab rebounds and put a wide open layup back. All the other stuff, dribbling the ball off the floor, getting the ball on the wing and doing a pump fake for a dribble drive. She should never shoot a three in her life. And I wonder what the heck she's been doing for the last year in terms of working on basketball, because her shot still comes from her hip and it's still a terrible looking shot. And she might make it in practice, but she'll never make it in a game when there's any pressure on her.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do think that the Atlanta Dream, if Brianna Jones can come back, that will be when you see the most dangerous Angel Reese, because she'll hopefully have learned her role, and that is just grab rebounds. And if you average 12 points a game and you're averaging 15 boards a game, you got Brianna Jones right next to you. I think that's significant. I'm surprised they're not starting Medina Okot, to be quite honest. I do have the one more question, and this is about Ryan Howard. She's on the same team. I view Ryan Howard as the most athletic basketball player in the WNBA, who might be the lowest IQ player in the WNBA. She's a 6'2", 175, 180-pound wing, athletic as can be. Physical as hell. I don't think she likes Caitlin Clark at all. Personally, she's always going at her, and that seems personal more than anything. But her skill set's crazy to me. But yet she'll take 10 threes a game, and she shoots terribly from three. And do you watch them at all? What are your thoughts of her? And I think she could be one of the best players in the league, but she refuses to do what she does well. Refuses to do what I think she can do well, and that's attack. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, to the Angel thing, like I could not agree more with what you said about her. When Jones comes back, I think that's going to unlock Angel, especially if she understands her role in the offense. I've like covered that in the past. Like essentially a week ago, I said the exact same thing. Like I think when Bree Jones returns, like that's going to be when we can tell what Angel's like ceiling and floor is with the Dream this season, because it's going to depend on her figuring out what her role is. And also, I will say, like with the footwork thing, I more meant like her post moves. I think are good.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely is a little clumsier in terms of Ryan Howard. Yeah, I think she's awesome. I think that's definitely interesting that you say that she's one of the most athletic players in the league. I don't disagree necessarily, but I honestly think of like Kennedy Carter. I think is one of the
she's a freak. She's a freak.
Yeah. And I think Kelsey Mitchell is probably the quickest athlete in the league or quickest player overall. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to remember that Ryan is like, she's still pretty young. She's only been in the league. I think she was drafted in 2022 or 2023, maybe.
She's like 5 years in. 4 or 5.
Yeah.
She's like 5 years in.
So I think she still has some, I think I see a lot of this, as I was just saying with Angel, I think I kind of see similar things with her where it's like, she tries to do too much at times and she knows that she's talented and that she should be aggressive and like she should be their main scorer. And I think that kind of manifests in her being reckless at times. But yeah, I think it's just I think that team is incredibly talented and I think they're going to make a deep run in the postseason. But it's going to depend on all of them: Angel, Ryan, Bree Jones, Alicia Gray, Jordan Canada, everyone, Medina Oko, which is a great shout on your end. All those players, if they figure out their roles and they play within their roles, yeah, that team's going to be dangerous.
I'm going to put you on the spot with this final one. Should they have drafted Medina Okot over Raven Johnson?
You
can no comment if you want to.
I'll say no, because I still think Raven has more, not a higher ceiling, but like I believe in Raven still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
and then what are your thoughts of this before, again, Grace Van Slooten? They bring her in. They drafted Passat 14 picks earlier.
Yeah.
They're both power forwards. One's a stretch wing. You need stretch players. And you bring in a player who was drafted that you probably could have traded up a spot to get her if you really wanted her, and given up a pick in a couple of years because you drafted right after. You got Timmons and you cut her. What have they said? Maybe they haven't said publicly about Van Slooten, which made them want Van Slooten so bad. Because again, some of these moves they make to me are just befuddling. Because I was screaming for a center. I thought Natasha Howard got completely shit on last year, and I thought she was very good.
She's been really good so
far. Most people have disagreed with me about Natasha Howard. A lot of people in my chat do not like Natasha Howard, but I was screaming about Natasha Howard all last year. And look at her at Minnesota, just kicking ass right now under Cheryl Reeve. And I thought she could have done exactly that with Indiana if Leah Boston kind of got out of the way, because I think she's better than Leah Boston personally. And the whole hub thing with Aaliyah Boston. I can't stand it personally. I don't like it at all because I don't think it's real. I don't want Aaliyah Boston shooting 24-footers. But what were your thoughts of this Passat thing? And is she ever going to get a chance, or they're just moving on to Van Sluten?
Um, I don't know, to be honest. I haven't heard anything other than what's been said publicly. I definitely think it's interesting how keen they were on her, especially after they just played her. Because like
Yeah.
she played limited minutes in that game against the Storm, but she she kind of like stuffed the stat sheet a little bit in like her limited minutes. So they were
Mm-hmm.
clearly impressed by her. Um, yeah, I'll be honest. Like I've seen like clips of her now that she's on the Fever, but I didn't really know anything about her game before that. Um, I think I don't know. I think the whole like Paso thing has been kind of weirdly handled, but also it's a development contract, and I don't know. They wouldn't have kept her around if they didn't at least see some kind of potential for her in the future. So, yeah, I'm definitely that's like one thing that I'm eager to see play out as the season progresses.
I got people in the chat telling me that Natasha Howard's an op, and that I'm crazy. I got to put down my pipe. I mean, Natasha Howard, career-wise, has had a better career than Leah Boston. I could sit here and say that without any hesitation. I mean, she's shooting 55% right now, and I don't want to see Leah Boston jacking threes personally. I don't like it. But man, listen, I appreciate you coming on board tonight. I know you've been on here for over an hour. I thank you, and have the opportunity to chat with you and learn more about your background. You know, I my final words, and then of course I'll give you the final words. Was I have the WNBA shows a massive inconsistency in how they deal with Caitlin Clark in comparison to other players. They go out of their way to protect and protect. I'm gonna be bluntly the black female athlete. It's a weird dynamic, and it's almost as if they feel as if they try to protect the white female athlete. I'm not gonna go into the LGBTQ stuff because I don't want to go there, but I wonder at times if that has something to do with it. It just is a very odd dynamic as to when your prized possession. It's like if you had a Patek Philippe watch. Are you familiar with watches or not? If you have
Yeah.
a Patek Philippe watch that's worth $250,000, are you leaving it on your table or are you putting it in your safe? Unlike a Timex, like it's Caitlin Clark is your Patek Philippe, and they openly seem to treat her like she's a Timex, and it's just frustrating to me. So I'll leave you with your final words, man.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say like just generally again, I appreciate you having me on. I think it took some bravery, I guess, on both of our ends. Just, I mean, how this day started, like we weren't the best of friends a few hours ago,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying we have to be the best friends now, but like I appreciate that you had the humility and the willingness to have me on and like have a real conversation about this live. I appreciate and like respect you a lot for doing that, and I also think that the work that you're doing is valuable, and I appreciate that you're covering the league, and I can tell that you're a huge fan, and everyone who's listening, like who's follows you, like I appreciate you all following the league. I think we're all in it for the right reasons, and I think that we all love the sport of women's basketball. And Caitlin, like she's been great for the league, and I think she deserves all the credit in the world, and I hope she gets it. I guess just there's two final things that I want to say, just because you
Mhm.
said it during your video, and I want to address them. You did say that I'm reading. You said that I read off a script, which is not true. I'm staring.
It looked like it. It looked pretty good. I
I'm
mean,
staring into the camera the entire time. It's like, how could I be reading off a script? But
I
I'll say
thought you had things right underneath it because I'm always looking this direction. Go
what I
ahead.
do.
Sorry.
Okay, so I think this is different between the content that we create, because for me, like I know what I'm going to talk about, and I do bullet points, and then like I'll sit here and stare at the screen and say like whatever my two sentences are until they're perfect. If it takes me 10 takes, it takes me 10 takes,
Okay.
because I'm not live, and so I'm not doing a long form podcast, so I can just clip it and make it the most concise and like articulate as possible. And
Okay.
so I just say it until I have to. That's not me reading off a script. And I know like you could come off the way, but that's just how it is. And then the last thing is that you did call me a softie. And I just hope that me coming on this podcast tonight
No,
shows that
man, you're not a softie, man. You're not a softie. You showing up here to me is his brass balls. I gotta be real, hey, because I don't know how familiar you are with these other podcasts that are out there from the Angel Reese side.
Mhm.
I've been a guest on theirs with 8 people from Angel Reese just attacking me.
Yeah.
No, nothing pleasurable, just straight up attacks and a
Mhm.
chat calling me a racist left and right, up and down the chat.
Yeah.
My wife is a black woman. My children are black. Are black. I've been in the black fraternity for almost 30 years.
Mhm.
Like this stuff is and my best friends like are black people. So it's like when people sit here and try to attack that. Like I've been called racist by white people and black people. As crazy as that might sound, it's pretty impressive, I think. So no, you definitely you coming on here, not a softie. But I do, so again, I apologize for all that, but I thank you for jumping on here because it does take balls to come on here. And I was shocked when you responded. I was like, oh, okay, we can do this. I didn't want to have a phone call. I wanted to have let's do a podcast. Let's make this fun. Let's make this enjoyable and interesting. So I thank you for coming on, man. And I guess, where do you think before we go, where do you think the Fever land this year?
Uh,
Wins, how far they go? What do you think before we go?
Man, I think the sky's a championship. I think for sure. There's definitely. I mean, I would hope that they have a lot of work to do to get there because we're still in May. Like they've played what, like a sixth of the season at this point of the regular season. I think. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of great teams in the league, but I think it would be disappointing if they did anything worse than they did last year, especially if Caitlin stays healthy the entire time.
You think that's fair to her though? Like, because I thought they got lucky to get to the semifinals last year,
Yeah, so do
personally.
I. But I don't know. I think. I mean, the Fever are freaking good. Like they're a loaded roster, and I think when you have someone like Caitlin at the helm, I think to me, I think if it's I could see them making it to the finals. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but to me, a successful season would them be them making it to the finals.
Okay, folks, that'll do it for tonight, man. I do appreciate you, man. Grant, thanks for coming on here, man. Folks, again, you can go follow him on social media. I don't know what is your social media if you want
It's
people to follow you.
yeah, I don't know, but it's Grant Young, just my name with the A is a V on all my other socials.
Okay. Yeah, I've had Twitter problems. Twitter has banned me from twice now. I've
Dang.
been banned off Twitter twice. Someone's hacked my stuff twice. I've had to change names twice. And it's like I just had it happen this past weekend for my other one. Like I'm down to one. I don't even know if I want to be on Twitter anymore. It's just a headache with all this
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
But
frustrating.
I
But
do
yeah, man,
appreciate it. Huh?
yeah, just water under the bridge. Like it's all
Yeah.
good. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me on.
man.
Yeah,
My
thank you to
pleasure.
everyone listening. Like, thank you for being women's basketball fans. You're doing good work, and I appreciate you for it.
And tell Stephanie White to talk to her medics after a game for once.
Agreed.
All right, that'll do it, folks. This is Indiana Fever Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Come on now.